Hello, welcome to the Tuesday Doctor's Call with Dr. Kurt Fisnick. This is Andrea from Michigan. It is June 19th, 2018, and we're excited to hear about what Doc's got to share today. We typically have all kinds of different topics on here that are associated with health and well-being. And you can tune in every Tuesday at noon just by going to Zoom and using the number 967-394-3165 and join our meeting. So Doc, let's go ahead and see what wonderful topic you have for us today.
Well, I want you to repeat that word that we were talking about earlier. I want you to say that word, the 5-methyl tetrahydrate folate homocysteine methyltransferase reductase.
No, thank you.
Well, it's an important enzyme in your body. Come on.
Well, good. I'll just call it meth for short.
No. Wrong choice. You want to call it MTRR, that MTRR gene.
Yes, MTRR. Okay.
Right? So if there's a SNP in your MTRR gene, it can cause you troubles, right?
I don't know. You're going to tell us about that, right?
That's what we're going to talk about today. So, thanks for being here, everyone. My name is Dr. Kurt Fisnick, and, we can joke around about it and things like that, but we really want to figure out what can we do for people to help them stay healthier, and that's really the object of this call. And so, today I wanted to cover a few important things, and I'm hearing a lot of people talking about methylation. It's kind of one of those words that's going around in the circles of people that I'm going to say kind of in the circle of people that deal with functional medicine, that deal with health. But what happens is that people pick up on one piece of the word, and all of a sudden they think that they're the biochemist. They think that they're the guru in health, and sometimes knowing a little bit of things can actually cause more problems. So like I said, if you look at the slide, it says methylation, its effect on your health, and we're going to cover some important topics today. But we're also going to cover some myths involved with this as well too, because it's affecting people's health, and we really want them to know what's going on with that. And so, hang on one second here. Okay, perfect. It's working. So, when we talk about methylation, here's some of the things that I want you to find out from today's call, and I got a lot of information to go through, so hopefully I'll go through it in a hurry, and some of it I won't cover. I know I won't get through it, but really, what is it, and what can you do about it if you're a poor methylator, and how many people does it affect? How do you really know if you have a problem? What are some of the myths that we're having behind it, and why are some clinics, why are some doctors making such a big deal about it? And what can you do if you really have a problem? So those are some of the things that I want to cover. And so, earlier we were talking about this MTRR and things like that. And, I'll tell you, there's been a lot of advances in genetic research. I remember back in 1998 and 99 when the Human Genome Project was first released to us as physicians, right? And what we learned then is that we're just as different on the inside as we are on the outside. The thing about it is that I can look at you and I can see that you're different on the outside. It's not quite so obvious on the inside, but we're all completely different. We have different variations, things like that, and genes control every single aspect of what's going on in our body: proteins, enzymes, cofactors, all these different things. It controls metabolic processes. It controls the way that you repair, the tissue building, muscle building, all these different things, bone building, energy production, detoxification, all these things. And there's something that we call SNPs, right? Single nucleotide polymorphisms, right? And what these are is these are mistakes in your genes. And so when we look at that, you can see here that as you're looking at that photo that I have on the slide, mom and dad get together, and all of a sudden you can have different ways that genes are passed, and so we started looking at this, and what it does is it can affect your susceptibility to certain types of diseases, and it significantly influences, biotransformation, detoxification, your ability to break down and eliminate certain toxins out of the body, including drugs and medicines and things like that. And they're finding that it can increase your risk of certain types of diseases, right? And so when we're talking about it, is that future research is going to use this information to help us treat heart disease, cancer, all sorts of conditions. And understanding these SNPs, these single nucleotide polymorphisms, there's going to be, some things that are going to improve your health, and understanding the consequences when somebody has a certain SNP. How does it affect disease? And so the thing that we're talking about today is just one little piece of the pie. We're talking about methylation. We're talking about one carbon transfers and the kind of effects that it has in your body. So methylation, it's critical for DNA function. It's critical for gene regulation, homocysteine, amino acid metabolism, glutathione. We've all heard of these different things, but altered methylation can affect your DNA, can affect your genes, and it can cause problems with stability. It can cause problems with gene expression. And so what does it have to do with nutrition? What does it have to do with Sisel? Well, folic acid or folate, it plays a big role, and it's required by almost all of the cells, the cell tissue in your body, so it can cause problems, but it can also fix things. So genetic variations can affect everything, even the brain. And like we talked about, homocysteine, they found that that's a compound in the body that if it builds up too high, it can cause problems, and it can cause accelerated aging. It can cause chronic disease, including neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia. It can cause cancer. It can affect cardiovascular disease, and it can impair gene regulation, and it can cause poor drug clearance, and it can cause neurotransmitter issues. Neurotransmitters that have been related to depression and ADD and depression, all these different things. And so the one gene that we're seeing a lot of people talk about is this MTHFR gene, which stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Right, Andrea? I want you to say that 5 times really fast. Methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, right? And there's been a lot of extensive research on it, but a lot of people talking about it today. There's a lot of people talking about it today. I learned about it almost 20 years ago, right? And all of a sudden, here it is 20 years later, we're hearing people talk about it, and some of the misinformation that's being passed around can affect people. And so we want to make sure that people understand that this isn't the only thing affecting methylation. There's other things that we can talk about. And so I'm just going to throw a couple other genes out there that kind of fall in the same category that affect the methylation. Another one is called MTR, the MTR gene. It's the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate homocysteine methyltransferase, right? These things are getting long. These are enzymes. And then you have the MTRR, which is the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate homocysteine methyltransferase reductase, right? And then you have COMT, which is catechol 0 or O methyltransferase, and the AHCY, which is the S-adenosyl homocysteine hydrolase, right? And these all have important roles in methylation and detoxification, neurotransmitters and homocysteine. And I'm just throwing this all out there because the thing about it is that we've had some people that have been bringing this up, and you want to be accurate on it, right? You don't want to just learn about one. You don't want somebody to tell you, oh, you have a problem with that methylation because you have the MTHFR gene and things about it is like that. So I think the way that I want to say it is that, these healers, they're well-meaning, right? And and they're just hearing about this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, who has that? Everybody has that. If you have this symptom, then you have that, and they're bringing it up, and so I'm just kind of trying to say is that we really need to know more, right? We really need to know more, and I'm not a genetic scientist. You can tell that as I'm reading this to you, right? As I'm reading this to you, you can tell that I'm reading it, right? I mean, I'm not going to remember those big, long words. I might remember them a little better now because this morning I've been on the computer since 7 o'clock this morning, writing things out, taking notes so that I know how to talk about this to all of you. But the thing is that, you know, as we move forward, we're going to see that there's going to be personalized lifestyle medicine, right? Personalized lifestyle medicine. And you'll see that, you know. Mark my words, you know, in the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, you're going to see that clinics are going to be opening up that are going to be taken, and they're going to do your genetic profile, and they're going to do a really good genetic profile on you so that they can accurately determine what you need. And it's not just, you know, telling you what nutrition, it's not telling you what vitamins, it's not telling you what drugs you need and things like that. But it's even telling you what foods you need to eat, right? And we all have unique genetics, and we all need a unique care plan, and that's going to enhance your outcome. And that's the future, right? And so the MTHFR gene strictly evaluates folate metabolism. And I'm just going to say that's one little piece of the puzzle, and it's just not enough. And so I just really want to bring that up. But homocysteine is an amino acid. It's part of the methylation process, the cycle. It can be toxic to cells if it's too high. It affects the blood vessels. It increases oxidation. Oxidation, as you know, isn't good. An easy way to describe oxidation is that if I have a shovel and I throw it outside and leave it outside over the winter, when I go back to pick it up in the spring, it's going to be rusty, right? It's going to be rusty. That's oxidation. And so we don't want rust. You don't want oxidation in your body. You don't want rusty cells, right? And it can cause problems with autoimmunity. It can cause problems with hardening of the arteries or atherosclerosis. It can increase dementia. It can cause problems with depression. It can cause problems with birth defects. And again, it's just one part of the cycle. And so what happens is that homocysteine is recycled in your body. It's continually recycled. And that's what prevents accumulation, right? And that's important for your health. And so, you know, we know that it causes accelerated aging. So let's look at a couple of these SNPs, these single nucleotide polymorphisms. And the first one, you know, that we're going to talk about is the MTHFR, which is the one that's involved with folate metabolism. And what this one really does, and I'm going to throw a lot of big words at you because I want you to understand that this isn't a simple thing. You're not just going to go read one article and all of a sudden become a scientist, all-knowing. And when you hear somebody say, oh, you shouldn't take that because it's got this in it or whatever, you have to understand that they probably really don't know what they're talking about. There are some people that do. Trust me, if you want to get in touch with some people that really, really understand this kind of thing, yeah, I've got some people that you can work with that are really, really good. But so what does the MTHFR do? Well, it converts 5-10 MTHF into 5-MTHF, which is the methylene to a methyl, right? And so it makes it an active form. It makes it so it's more active. And what's it important for? Where it's important for DNA and RNA, it's, you know, which is part of your whole genes and chromosomes and all that, you know. So I'm just throwing those words out there for you to know. And neurotransmitters, again, depression, anxiety, all these different things. Phospholipids, which are, you know, connections in your body. And then the remethylation of homocysteine to methionine, right? And so it takes that homocysteine, which you remember earlier I said it builds up and it can cause cardiovascular problems, things like that. But, you know, so this is critical in converting, you know, like synthetic folic acid to the 5-metrotetrahydrofolate, which is the active form of folic acid, right? And so if you have a problem, then we need to do something about it. And so when we're looking at this mistake, when we're looking at this SNP, the single nucleotide polymorphism, this gene, this MTHR gene, it can jeopardize that. It can cause problems. It's just one, right? And the final expression is really what it has to involve with nutrition, environment, your genotype, your race, your ethnicity, all these things. And so what I try and tell people is that if you have a problem with it, then you need to supplement with 5-metrotetrahydrofolate. Well, guess what? We've got that in Spectramax. That's in there already, okay? And that's because Tom and the Mowers and our Sisel, we understand that this affects people. Like I said, if you look at the slide, 40 to 70% of people, most people don't even know they have an issue. Most people go through life and never even understand they have an issue. And so there's some things that we can do about it. Well, what I try and tell people is supplement with some of the 5-metrohydrofolate, which is in Spectramax, right? And you want to have kind of a prolonged exposure rather than a high dose. I know that I've heard doctors say, oh, you want to take this big mega dose. No. What you want to do is you want to have prolonged exposures. You want to have a little bit at a time, And so that's what we're recommending, right? You don't want to go out and buy something that's really, really explosive, right? I remember I used to run a race car, and we used to throw some stuff in our gasoline to make it so that the octane was like super octanated gasoline, right? And what would happen is that when you heard that gasoline explode into cylinders, I mean, it would explode. And we lost a couple engines because of it. I mean, you'd see pistons blowing off the side of the engine. And, so that's what you don't want to do. So what are some other things that you can do? Well, you want to take and you want to look at your foods, right? And this is healthy for everybody, right? If they're saying 40 to 70%, let's just kind of say it's probably half of us, right? It's probably half of us. You don't have to be a scientist to say 40 to 70%. I mean, that's probably half of us, right? And so what do you want to do? Eat some dark green leafy vegetables, right? Kale, spinach, things like that. Your greens, go to the grocery store, buy some greens. I don't care if you like it. Eat it, right? You want to start eating asparagus. Asparagus is my favorite vegetable. I love this time of year. There's asparagus everywhere. I can find it growing along the road ditches, right? As and I won't tell you how to find it because that's another story. But asparagus and your legumes like your beans and your lentils, things like that. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, avocados, right? Tom says eat an avocado a day. And you're gonna get plenty so that you start processing and you're gonna start correcting this issue for most of us, right? Now, are there going to be some people that they're still going to have a problem? You bet. And those are the people that we want to take a closer look at. Those are the people that we're going to send to my friends that understand this stuff a little bit better, because I'm going to tell you that that's not what I'm going to specialize in, right? I'm not going to specialize just into one thing, but I can tell you that I've got some friends that do, right? And then we're going to talk about MTR, which is 5-methyltetrahydrofolate homomethyltransferase gene, right? And this one it codes for the methionine synthesis enzyme. It facilitates the regeneration of methionine, right? And that's an amino acid that's critical for protein synthesis. Well, where do you need protein? You need proteins in your muscles and in your brain and all these different things. And so 5-metrotetrahydrofolate, right, which is the form of B vitamin that's in our Spectramax, it's a methyl donor. B12, it's a methyl transfer compound. You need both of those, right? And it's a complex reaction that neutralizes homocysteine. Again, if you have accumulation of homocysteine in your body, it's going to cause issues like heart disease and things like that. So B12, cobalamin, it oxidizes, it needs reduction. So then we start talking about another gene. This gene is the MTRR gene, which is the 5-methyltetrahydrofolate homomethyltransferase reductase gene, right? And it regenerates methylcobalamin, which is a form of B12, and it helps to maintain safe levels of homocysteine. And we can talk about these different mutations, the gene mutations that, they've mapped out all these genes, and we're going to talk about the one or two genes that it affects, the C3518T and the A2756 genes, right? Right? Do you want to learn all that stuff? Absolutely not. Right? So what do we want to do? If you've got problems with that, then what you want to do is you want to use vitamin B12, methyl forms of vitamin B12, so you can get methyl forms of vitamin B12, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. And then we were talking about issues with the MTRR, which is the 5-methyltetrahydrofolate methyltransferase reductase gene. And that one is, it remethylates cobalamin to methylcobalamin, and it reactivates methionine synthase so that it'll convert homocysteine to methionine, right? And so if you have a SNP in that area, it's going to be less effective. It might even be ineffective, right? And so you're going to have increased levels of homocysteine in your blood. So when you go to your doctor, when you get in your physical and all these different things, ask them to measure your homocysteine, right? If there's a problem, then we can start looking at these types of things. But the MTRR SNP, that involves the A66G gene, it affects cardiovascular disease. It can affect colon cancer. And so then when you have an issue of this, then you want to supplement with a vitamin or a nutrient that's called, it's called SAMe. Capital S, capital A, capital M, and then small e, which stands for adenosylmethionine. Right? And you can get that. It's readily available. You can probably go on Amazon. You can get 100 different forms of it right there. And so if you have an issue with that, if you find that your homocysteine levels are high, you can start taking some of that. Right? It's going to help. And then we start looking at the COMT gene, the catechol OM methyltransferase, right? It's produced by the nerves in the brain. What does it do? It breaks down the catecholamines. What are catecholamines? Adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine, right? These are the things in your brain. Dopamine, right? It breaks them down, but it also breaks down certain drugs, blood pressure drugs, asthma drugs, right? And it can break those down. If you have problems, it can cause things like Parkinson's, right? It maintains a healthy neurotransmitter balance in your brain. Again, neurotransmitters are the chemicals in your brain. There's two genes, there are two SNPs that can cause problems, and it causes decreased DNA methylation and decreased neurometabolism. It causes decreased drug metabolism. It causes decreased detoxification in your body. It can increase your pain. It can increase your risk of fibromyalgia, right? We've all heard that word by now. I remember when I first started hearing of fibromyalgia, I thought, oh, God, what's now? They just made up a new disease, right? And then it can cause problems with estrogen. It can cause problems with Parkinson's. It can cause problems with depression. It can cause problems with high blood pressure, right? So what are you going to do if you have a problem with this? Well, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take the SAMe, the SAMe supplement, right? And then you want to pay attention to antidepressants. You want to watch. If you're having a problem breaking down these chemicals, you probably don't want to take antidepressants, right? You might have some issues. Let's look at another gene. It's the AHCY, adenosyl homocysteine ACE, right? So it's, again, it's integral for methylation. It's integral for DNA instructions. It tells your DNA what to do, right? It's like the factory worker. It says, here's what you need to do today, right? If you don't have this gene, if you have a SNP in that area, then your DNA is probably not going to know what to do. And it's important for protein and fat metabolism. It's also important for neurotransmitters, right? You're starting to see some things happening. You're starting to see some things being repeated here. Neurotransmitters, right? How you feel, how your brain works, right? It can cause myopathies. It can cause degenerative issues. It can cause a lot of different things. So what do you supplement when you have this? Again, you're starting to see this word, the SAMe, S-A-M-E, right? And you're going to want to supplement with NADH, right? You're going to want to supplement with hydrogen. Guess where you get hydrogen? From the super H2 machines that Sisel has, right? And so what does the age pill do? If you listen to Tom when he's talking, the age pill helps your body produce more hydrogen. So wouldn't it be important that if you have this problem, right, if you increase for risk for neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia, wouldn't you want to start taking the age pill because it increases the hydrogen, right? So this stuff isn't, I mean, some of it's rocket scientists, but some of it's not. I mean, and so we're starting to see that there's a growing body of knowledge around this. We're starting to see these words, nutrigenomics, nutrition genetics, and functional genetics, and functional genetic testings, and so just think of it like this: genes load the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger. Genes load the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger, right?
Good one.
So we want to take and we want to control the environment because we can't control your genetics, right? And so that's what we're talking about. So what does that do? We want to talk about environmental factors. We want to talk about the interaction, and it's important because as we move into more of a comprehensive, personalized healthcare, you're going to find that this is going to be talked about more and more. And you can say, hey, I heard that back in June of 2018. I remember hearing about that. So testing will become more and more imperative as we look at this. And so, you know, as I look at this, hang on one second, I'm just kind of trying to keep track of the time. Boy, my half hour is up already. Like I said, I mean, there's trillions of cells in your body. There's 20,000 genes. There's one gene called the MTHFR, 1 out of 20,000, right? It affects one thing. It affects methylation. That's one of billions of times of things that are going on every single second in your body, right? And you got gut problems that can cause problems and things like that. And we've got curcumin, which is found in our brain vitality. It's found in the Renovator, right? That helps. We've got resveratrol. We've got, in my opinion, the only resveratrol product on the market that I would ever use. That's in the Eternity, right? We've got alpha lipoic acid. That's what's in the age pill, right? It promotes healthy pathways. You start doing these type of things, you're going to have decreased inflammation. You're going to have increased antioxidants, right? You're going to have better function of these different things. You're going to have better health. You know, you start looking at some of the things that we do in our population, right? The birth control pills block folic acid function. The birth control pill does, right? And so we wonder, why do they say that women have, that babies are sometimes born with birth control problems, and if you take folic acid, you're going to have less problems, but yet they prescribe birth control pills that cause the folic acid function, right? And then we have antacid that blocks B12, vitamin B12, and so we look at that. Right now in America, they say that there's a vitamin B12 deficiency epidemic, right? It's so bad they're calling it an epidemic. How bad does it have to be before they call it an epidemic? That's huge, right? And then you look at stress. What does stress do? Well, stress causes problems. Watch the news tonight. Oh my gosh. Do they try and stress you out or what? Right? I mean, do you think, Andrea? I mean, you think they're stressing you out?
I can't watch it.
And you want to shut it off, right? I turn the news on just so I can see the weather, and then I shut it off, right? And we have to just start looking at it that no program is a one-size-fits-all. Think of it like this. Again, I like analogies. I want you leaving here today going, I got it. I can explain it to people. So think of it like this. Your genes are like flowers, right? Your enzymes are the honeybees. And the honey is the folic acid, right? So if you don't have flowers, you're not going to have a bee. If you don't have a bee, you're not going to have any honey. What do you think of that?
That's a good one.
Right? And most people are asymptomatic, they're unaffected, they don't have any problems, but yet we're starting to hear some of these people bringing these things up, and I just wanted to kind of address it because I want people to understand that you'll take these products and you're going to find that they're great for you. You know, I was just reading that the thyroid regulates vitamin B2. Vitamin B2 is important in methylation of folate, right? If you have a decreased thyroid function, you're going to have a problem, right? How many people are affected by thyroid? Well, they say that Synthroid, thyroid medication, synthetic thyroxine, is one of the most commonly prescribed drugs in America. I think that they say that it's one of the top five, right? And so the mutation itself is highly unlikely to cause a direct cause of disease. It's not going to cause a diagnosis by itself. We take and we look, folic acid is fortified in wheat flour. You know, if you're looking for ways of reducing your synthetic folic acid, look at the fortified wheat flour. And I try and tell people you should be cutting back on that kinds of thing. Cut back on the fortified stuff and add the 5-methotrexate, right? Guess where it is? Spectromax, right? You can take Spectromax. And so we start looking at what other things like blood pressure medications, metformin, birth control pills, things like that. They cause a decrease in the B vitamins, right? So what can we do about it? If you want to find out, do I have that gene that Doc Fizz was talking about, right? Well, you can order those tests from 23andMe. You can order them from Ancestry.com. You can order them from Smart DNA. You can order them from Genova. There's a lot of different places that you can get this. You can get these things tested. And then what about it? They can't give you a diagnosis, right? The FDA said these places can't give you a diagnosis because they're saying that, look, you know, you look at the slide that's up there right now, a little bit of information is sometimes as dangerous, maybe even more dangerous than not knowing at all, right? But if you want to have it tested, you want to get done, I had mine tested, right? I had mine tested when it first came out. It was a couple $1,000s that I spent to have it done. Now you can get it done for a couple $100, and then you can use geneticgenie.org, geneticgenie.org, geneticgenie.org. It's free, and they'll take and they'll analyze it and they'll tell you what does it really mean. Or you can use another one. It costs $5. Right, which is almost free in my opinion. It's called Promethase, PROMETHEASE.com. And just remember, take all this stuff with a pinch of salt, with a grain of salt. Don't get all excited, super excited. Like, oh man, it's gonna kill me, right? And we just got to realize that you got to look at the big picture. You got to look at the big picture. And, you know, when you look at folic acid, the chemical name is pteroglutamic acid, right? And so when we start talking about the different forms and that, you know, and then we look at vitamin B12, methylcobalamin, and cyanocobalamin. And I hear people saying, oh, you don't want to take cyanocobalamin. I'll tell you what, methylcobalamin is only slightly more active than cyanocobalamin, right? The problem with it is methylcobalamin isn't absorbed as easily as the cyanocobalamin. You have to take a few thousand more micrograms the methylcobalamin to get the same effect as taking the regular dose of cyanocobalamin, right? It's not a superior form of vitamin B12. If you look at again, Spectromax, we got the cyanocobalamin, right? And people that tell you that, and I'm trying to get rid of some myths here, so I know I'm going overtime just a little bit, but the most active form of vitamin B12 is actually something called hydroxycobalamin, right? And you can't take that in a supplement. If somebody says that they're giving you the same form that's found in food, they are not. They're lying to you, right? It's not in supplements. It's not stable. But that's the form that they can give you in injection, right? And then you'll hear people say, that studies tell us that methylcobalamin is better than cyanocobalamin. Well, what they forget to tell you, though, is that the studies that show that methylcobalamin is better than cyanocobalamin, they're used in an injectable form. It's not on an oral form. The studies weren't done on oral forms. And so you just have to start looking at why are they doing it? Well, these are scare tactics. It's trying to get you to buy their product, right? And then some people will say, well, cyanocobalamin has cyanide in it. Yeah, okay, right? Do you know how much vitamin B12 cyanocobalamin you'd have to take to have an issue? You'd have to eat a truckload. A truckload. You're not gonna do it, right? And you could take and you could drink tap water. You could drink a couple glasses of tap water, and you're gonna get 10 times the amount of cyanide that you're gonna get in a mega dose of cyanocobalamin. You could eat just one serving of lima beans and have 15,000 times more cyanide than you would get in cyanocobalamin. Let's get real, folks, right? It's a sales pitch. So when I talk to Tom about these things, and he says that, all of this is important because it's necessary for methylation. Methylation is necessary because it helps build NAD plus, right? And you've heard him talk a lot about NAD plus. If you haven't, go listen to some of Tom's recordings on the age pill, right? And you want to eat a lot of foods that high in the methyl compounds, right? You should be doing that anyhow, right? Avocados, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, your dark leafy green vegetables, all these different things. And what we're going to find is that as research progresses, as we know more, we're going to be able to offer this personalized wellness medicine, right? And that's going to be important as the future comes. We're going to have that 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, maybe 20 years down the road. Who knows? But we're going to have that kinds of things as we go. And so, am I passionate about this stuff? You bet. You bet. I am reading up on it all the time. Am I going to be a genetic scientist? Am I going to sit here and analyze all these different things? Absolutely not. Like I said, most of us are going to go through the day. We're going to take these products. We're going to get better. We're going to be healthy. And overall, you're going to find that you're going to help start preventing disease, right? That's what's going to happen. Now, let's say that you're working with somebody and they just don't seem to be responding. Well, that's when you want to start looking. Maybe there's an issue. Maybe they need to be taking more of this or more of that. Maybe they're not responding as quickly to the age pill, right? What can we do? What can we do? Well, the one thing that I recommend is that we need to start looking at detox, right? What product do I recommend? Super Detox, right? If I'm looking for a product that detox, wouldn't I buy a product that has detox in the name? Super Detox, right? It's a great product. It's not something you want to take every day. But like I was telling somebody the other day, do we want to do a detox on every single person right away? Absolutely not, right? One of the first things that I always look at, I was talking to a gentleman the other night about 11 o'clock on Sunday night. Yeah, sometimes I work late. And he was telling me that all these different issues that he's having, and he's 27 years old and he feels like he's going to die, right? I said, well, everything that they tested on you, you know what they forgot to test? How's your poop, right? And some people laugh when I say the word because it's not very scientific. It's not very medicine-like. I said, how often are you pooping? He said, twice a week. I said, well, there's your issue. I said, let's fix that. Anyhow, Andrea, what do you think?
It's good. Does Tom have something to contribute to that conversation?
Well, like I said, Tom says methylation is really important. It's important for the whole function of making energy and making the NAD plus, right? And he says, you know, we should be using the super detox. He said we should be using Spectramax because it's got the, you know, the correct form of vitamin B9, folic acid, which is the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, right? Can you repeat that for me?
No.
You heard it. Say it. Come on. We're not going to hang up till you say it. 5-methyl.
Bimethyl.
5. The number 5.
5-methyl.
Tetra.
Hydra.
Folate.
Folic.
Okay, say it all together. 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate.
I can't do it.
Oh, I'll tell you what. You know, you can have a lot of fun with everything you do, right? Even science.
That's right.
And, you know, thanks for everybody for being here. Andrea, thanks for being here every week with me and hosting a call for me and, you know, kind of keeping me in line and all that. If you want to hear the rest of the calls that we've done, we've been doing this now. You know, Andrea, I think I've been doing the doctor's call every week for 3 years now.
Yeah, you have.
I haven't missed a week. I don't
Where
know.
can they find that information?
So if you go to www, right, www.Sisel Doctor Clinic, Sisel Doctor Clinic. So there's no S in there. It's just SISELDOCTORCLINIC.com, SiselDoctorClinic.com. And then, you know, Andrea, one of the things that we're doing, you probably didn't realize it, we launched the SiselWorldTeam.com website this morning.
Awesome. Yay.
It's up. It's not done. It's a work in progress, everyone. But go check it out. We're going to have a lot of information on there for you. And you know, for those of you listening to the recording, thank you for taking the time to listen to the recording. And Andrea, I'll let you close out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Kurt Fisnick, for giving us that great information. And I just want to mention that, you know, he's mentioned a few products here. If you're a visitor today and you've never heard the doctor's call before, understand that Doc's been helping people with their health for over 30 years and pretty much dedicated his life to it. He's found a really awesome company that produces effective and non-toxic products, and that company is Sisel. So if you were strolling on one of your friends' social media sites today, or if they invited you to this call, go ahead and get back with them and ask them to look at their website, and you can see all the different products that are available there. And of course, go visit the website that Dr. Kurt mentioned. There may be topics there that are pertinent to your health, and that's what we're hoping for, is that we can help you improve your health. Thank you. Have a great day.